Well, former President Jacob Zuma says to send him to prison right now would be a death sentence. He's 79, believed to be suffering from heart and blood pressure problems as well as diabetes, and he says he's not been vaccinated against COVID-19. While the courts will be seized with his last-ditch bid to stay out of jail from tomorrow, let's find out just what protocols are in place for elderly and sick inmates. Should Zuma's bid to stay his sentence fail tomorrow, he'll likely be imprisoned from Thursday. I'm joined now by Singabakho Nxumalo, the spokesperson, national spokesperson for the Department of Correctional Services. Mr. Nxumalo, thank you so much for joining us. Could you just give us an idea of how many elderly inmates you have in the prison population?
A very good evening and thank you for having us. Perhaps before getting into that, it's important to state that Correctional Services must take necessary steps to ensure safe custody for inmates, and we need to maintain security and good order. So that particular mandate guides the work that we do, even looking at our policies and procedures. It then categorically states that inmates being behind bars are vulnerable. Therefore, you need to make it a point that you protect them, respond to their specific needs. Hence, then you will have us different classification of inmates. Those that you classify to be of maximum risk, medium risk, and low risk. But in addition to that, what do you do with women and children? What do you do with women in general? What do you do with the elderly? Hence, then, you can't, for instance, take an 80-year-old into a cell of males between the ages of 36 and 42. They will take advantage of that elderly, and that person will find it hard to defend himself. By the time officials arrive, it might be too late. So as a department, we have those measures in place to say you've got to categorize people accordingly and make it a point that you respond to their needs and they are protected at all times.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, that you make sure that your inmates are kept safe. So talk to me about, do you have a lot of people, nearly 80, in prison in South Africa?
They are not that much. As we were starting with our vaccination program, we need to start with those who are 60 and above. And we could only get just about 5,300, which therefore says that community is not so big. Our inmate population is largely, between the ages of 26 and early 50s. That's where the large concentration is. But then we've said it before that it does concern us that our inmate population is getting younger and younger, which is a concern because they are serving long sentences. It therefore says they will mature in prison. And as a developing country, I don't think that's an ideal situation.
Yeah, you make a good point. So obviously, along with the rest of South Africa, the COVID jab was offered to inmates over 60 as well. I would imagine that the over 50s are also going to benefit now, as we are in the rest of the country. What do you do for people who come into prison and they are advanced in age, let's say close to 80, they haven't been vaccinated against COVID-19 and they have pre-existing health problems? Would they go straight to a hospital wing? What is the protocol?
The protocol is very clear to say for each and every person being admitted, irrespective of age, they must be assessed. In that assessment, we talk about the health risk, mental health status of that person, suicide risk. I've alluded to vulnerability. We also conduct a criminological assessment. We also have to look at the security risk. So as a department, we will run that. It must take place within 6 hours after admission. Then out of that, then you're in a better position to say, here I've got an elderly person with the following conditions, be it health or be it mental state or even sexual orientation. Therefore, you are able then to say, this is the route that I need to take then in terms of properly detaining this person so that is not found vulnerable. So as a department, those measures are there, but we also then reach out to a person to say, give us more information about yourself. Are you on chronic medication? What else is happening around you? So that you try to make the environment conducive for that person, because we fully understand that the first 24 hours are very critical for a person who's being admitted in a correctional facility. Therefore, we need to respond to that because we the Act is very clear to say when a person is sentenced, that is a punishment on its own. Once a person is with us, you no longer have to say, like, now let's punish that person. We've gone through that by being behind bars. That is a punishment on its own. Now it's a matter of saying how best are we able to rehabilitate you, assist you, and respond to the specific needs that you have identified.
If an inmate or someone arriving in the prison system does not want to be vaccinated for COVID-19, I presume you have to respect that right.
We'll have to respect that right, but then we have to explain the risk involved with that. To say, if you opt, it's like someone refusing to take chronic medication. To say, this is the risk. And then our healthcare professionals, because in our architect we have nurses, doctors, psychologists, and social workers, then we need to try whatever possible to reach out to that person. But if a person still insists that I don't want to take medication, I don't want to be vaccinated, unfortunately, you can't force that person. It therefore says now you need to put that person in a space where at least you know that will not be exposed should anything happen. But the responsibility is also on that person to say, you are therefore admitting to say you are putting yourself at risk should something happen to you. Therefore, as a state, you can't then put a blame on us because we've reached out to you, we explained to you, and we made all services available. Therefore, an issue of choice.
If a 79-year-old inmate says to you, I'm too old and I'm too sick to be in prison, this is a death sentence, what would you say to them?
Unfortunately, that's not a terrain for correctional services. We only admit people as per the warrant of admission. It will state that this is Singabakho Nxumalo, sentenced to 7 years for this particular offense. Therefore, I must be admitted. Then if there are other, let's say, maybe underlying conditions or other things, happening in my life or in my body, then those things will be assessed, then we take you through now our act, which is Correctional Services Act. If it means that it's something which is critical or something which could be fatal, then we need to deal with you now using our act. But it cannot be a space for correctional services to say we cannot admit a person because he or she is indicating that she's too old or is too sick. So as a department, we can't defy an order of court. We have to admit that particular person. I understand, and thank you so much for explaining your priorities to keep your inmates safe so very clearly to us this evening. Singabakho Nxumalo, the spokesperson, national spokesperson for the Department of Correctional Services.